essential basic role as a SHIBA counselor. The other side of that being Senior Medicare Patrol. And the reason Senior Medicare Patrol exists nationally is that older Americans or older adults, and especially Medicare beneficiaries, are highly targeted by scams and fraud. And I don't know if you've thought about it this way, but Medicare has a rule, a law actually, that they have to follow, that once a claim is submitted, they have to pay it within a very quick amount of time. And I always say this because I can never remember if it's 30 or 60 days, and somebody always corrects me, thank you. Regardless, the point being that if a claim is submitted, Medicare is going to pay it most of the time. And then if there's a problem with it, then that might come up after. And so fraudsters or scam artists, criminals, criminal organizations, marketing violators, all of those entities are very well dialed into this aspect of Medicare. So if you suddenly look at your, and we're going to talk about this, if you look at your Medicare statement and it says back brace, and yet you've been preparing for a marathon, so you're quite sure you don't need a back brace, then you might be thinking, why is there a back brace? And who is this company, Centennial Med Supply LLC out of Denver, Colorado? Well, if you explore a little further, like I do in my role, then you find out that this is a fraudulent claim that Medicare has now paid $4,000 for a back brace that you didn't need, doctor never ordered, right? So now this company has made money off of your Medicare ID number. This is why SMP exists, because both this big program called Medicare and the fact that we have a very large population of older adults presents a very financially beneficial opportunity for criminals. So SMP does two things, two really important parts of our program. The first is outreach. So the number one thing, the best defense is to help teach people, teach consumers, beneficiaries, and their family members, right? Because a lot of times our clients have adult children or siblings or other people in their family that are helping them with financial decisions. So we want to educate the public about these scams, fraud, et cetera, that somebody might encounter if they are a Medicare beneficiary. And we want to teach them how to prevent as much of it as they can. In today's world, there's no perfect prevention. There is no mechanism by which I can tell you, do this and you'll never get a scam call again. It doesn't happen, it doesn't exist. It's just part of our society. So there are some tips to protect ourselves, and there are some detection things that we can do to catch it early if fraud occurs. Now, I will say that fraud is not the only story. It's the highlight, and it's big news because people pay attention, right? It's the car wreck on the freeway. It's what people like to pay attention to. But the other part of the story are errors, which happen easily and frequently because medical billing is very, very complicated. So human mistakes happen. So a lot of times I will get called and people are reporting something that they believe to be fraud. And really, when we take a close look at it and I ask them to call their provider's billing office, it really is a billing mistake and it's easily corrected. So those are things that people need to know, right? They need to know what to look for and what to do about it. And then there's the abuse of the Medicare system, which I don't really like that term. Most of the time, what happens in those cases is a provider's office is using a billing system or a system within their office. It could just be the way they process things that has become antiquated and it no longer aligns with Medicare's processing systems. And so it might include, an example I often use is, let's say you have a psychologist or a psychiatrist. There are CPT codes, right? So there's billing codes where you can bill for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. But it could be in their office, they've only ever billed for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Well, Medicare would consider it abuse of the program system to bill for 30 minutes if it was only a 15-minute visit. So those kinds of things happen. It's not intent to defraud Medicare, but it's a little bit more than a mistake. In other words, they need to make a change in how they're doing their processing. So that's that is to help you differentiate or hear how it shows up differently in the world of Senior Medicare Patrol. These days, I do focus very heavily on scams and fraud because I see a lot of it. I hear a lot of it around the country, and I receive a lot of reports about it in our state. So hold on just a second. You're thinking, Kim, I never hear about this. What are you talking about? So anybody received a scam call before?
Yeah.
Okay, Laura, tell me what to you is a scam call. What does it sound like? Don't forget to unmute. I know, we all forget that.
Okay. This happened just this morning.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim. I got a call from Medicare Assistance. I'm like, who are you? I'm Irene, and I'm calling to help you with your Medicare. Have you received your new Medicare card? And I'm like, why did I need a new Medicare card? And she said, she just went on to, when did you get your Part A and Part B? I said, why do you need that information? And she hung up.
And it's a scam call. Now, what would make you think that might be a scam call?
Well, didn't tell me really who they were, what they were, why they need my information, which I know they don't need my information. So that's where I start.
How many of you think it would be reasonable that Medicare would give you a phone call? They would just give you a phone out of the blue. Hey, can you verify your Medicare ID for me? Does that sound like something? Typically, no. So unless it's an unusual case, which recently, like in the past 6-9 months, we've heard of some breaches of people's personal information that involved Medicare card numbers or Medicare ID numbers. And Medicare did send new ID numbers and cards out to those people affected. They received a letter ahead of time. They did not receive a phone call. So typically Medicare will not call you, and Medicare has your ID number. So would they need to verify it out of the blue? Also, if Medicare is sending out new cards, you would see it plastered everywhere, right? I mean, SHIBA would be notifying people. It happened in 2018 when they got rid of the Social Security number on the cards. They came out with the new cards. Oh my goodness, the PR all over the place, right? Because they wanted people to know this was a legitimate thing. So one of the most common scams is the Medicare card scam call. And they are very convincing. They might even have their phone number show up on your caller ID as Medicare, and that's called spoofing. Basically, they're presenting a fake phone number. I had somebody I talked to last week who actually had a scam call come in, and the caller ID was the Polyclinic, which many of you are familiar with, which is actually his provider. And he called his provider's office and said, did somebody call me? No. So they're very technologically advanced compared to what we are in our everyday life. And they are very good at manipulating us. So that being said, the whole reason that I send things out to any of you or your volunteer coordinators, or we do postings on social media, or we do big campaigns to inform the public, is that there are a lot of people that just are not aware. And so when they receive that call from Medicare, or they receive that call that, oh, you have back pain, did you know that you are eligible for a free back brace? And I can just get that to you within the next few days, right? They don't realize that this is a scam call. They give out their information, and then it morphs from a scam call to legitimate fraud. And they start defrauding Medicare. Now, if I give my ID number to a criminal and they start using it to charge Medicare for whatever, how do I get that to stop? Right? I mean, they could go on till the end of time billing Medicare. They could have a nice house in the Bahamas living off Medicare. What do I do? Just say, oh, well, did Donald Trump deal with it? No, what I tell people is I tell them after they've reported to us, call Medicare at 1-800-Medicare, report the fraud, ask for a fraud alert to be put on your account, and request a new ID number be issued because your current ID is now compromised. And that using that term compromised seems to be important to Medicare. Essentially just means that anything that shows up on your Medicare statements or any activity on your account is questionable now. Now, who can think of a way that might impact your overall health care or treatment in the future? So if I have claims, let's say I have claims on my Medicare for diabetic supplies, diabetic testing, and it goes on for several months, but I'm not diabetic. Larry, what do you think? Don't forget to unmute.
Yeah. Yeah, the way that it would affect me once I've posted this warning on my account is that now even my own charges are going to be watched more carefully. So I might have a little bit more difficulty with processing my own Medicare claims. But to me, that's just, that's the trade-off that you get for protecting the system. Putting a flag on my account is a little bit of a trouble for me, but it protects the system. That's important.
Yeah, good point. Any other thoughts about what might happen down the road as you encounter, different health concerns or whatever else, and you've got these fraudulent claims on your account? Aruna? Excuse me.
This
Go
is
ahead,
Prakash.
Prakash.
I was asking that putting a alert on your Medicare account system, would it affect my providers getting reimbursed? Or
So it's not going to affect anybody who is following the processing requirements. So if they are contracted with Medicare and they are submitting the correct CPT codes, they're submitting the correct, going through the correct process, it shouldn't be an issue.
okay.
So, and to be perfectly honest, I wish just putting a fraud alert on your account was enough, that you could just do that and all other fraudulent charges would stop. But that's not the reality, which is why I recommend to people step 2, which is requesting a new Medicare ID. Because again, Medicare has to adhere to the law that says they pay claims within a certain time frame.
Okay.
Also, this is Aruna.
Hi,
I
Aruna.
wanted to, hello. In addition to the calls regarding the new Medicare card, also and about the back braces, there are genetic testing calls. We just had
Yep.
one yesterday.
Yeah.
That is another scam that is still going around.
Yep. 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 There's a big one. You might have seen the Department of Justice prosecuted a huge number of people, I don't know, a few months ago related to Medicare and Medicaid fraud. And one of the constant fraud scenarios that we're seeing were charges on Medicare for urinary catheters. And they nicknamed it Gold Rush. So it was the Gold Rush. But nobody's getting my joke, but oh well. Go ahead, Tina. Linda gets it. Go ahead, Tina.
Oh, yes. Well, is it possible that you could have your own legitimate claim denied if like you become diabetic and so that it's already been recently filled or
Yes,
a duplicate
exactly.
claim? Is that?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Because remember that some treatments, some durable medical equipment, some benefits that we have through Medicare are limited, right? And so if Medicare sees that you have already used that limited benefit, there is a possibility that when you legitimately need it, it's going to be denied. it also shows, if a doctor is seeing that, interesting, there's this person has already had some billing statements, or, if they're looking at a billing record, and I can't give you a perfect scenario for how it would show up, but if they see that there's been treatment for something that doesn't exist, is that going to change how the doctor reviews your situation? So, it requires some really good communication, of course, with your doctors and making sure they're aware of those situations. So you can see, and I don't want to spend too much time on all of the different scenarios, because what I really want to do is give you some tools that you can walk away with today on how you can integrate information about Senior Medicare Patrol, but also, and more importantly, about how to prevent and detect and report situations that might be suspicious, that people might have questions about. Aruna, real quick, and then we'll go into our talking point.
Right, real quick. So it is to the older adults' benefit to ask for a new Medicare card, so that the previous wrong claims that were made would not, impact the future approval of the much needed, equipment, which is, approved on a limited basis or something, right? So asking
Well,
for
so
a new.
here's the sad reality of how Medicare processes claims and the way their system works. And we have to remember there's, how many billions of people and, millions of people across the country that are submitting claims. So, fair enough that there's a lot of claim processing going on, and trying to figure out how to reverse a claim that's been processed or change what's on somebody's account is not an easy task. But I will say that Medicare, I will say Medicare does not have a process for reversing claims at this point. So if you have fraudulent claims on your account, I tell you to get a new card so you don't have future claims. But Medicare typically will not remove what is already there. So it could potentially still be an issue in the future, which is why it's really important to report it, especially to Medicare, so that they see in your account that there are notes that you had a fraudulent situation. And that's, at this point, working with Medicare's system, we don't have a better way to eliminate fraudulent activity off of an account once it's already there.
So Kim, this is Lisa, looking at Noreen's comment about, she had a client whose knee replacement was rejected because it showed that it had already happened. So that's an example of where the person just has to go through the process of getting a new card and putting in a new claim because they already have a new knee.
Yes, but I would also say, like, if that client had come to Noreen and Noreen said to me, "Gosh, this person reported this, Kim, any thoughts on what I should do?" I would tell this person, or tell her to tell this person, contact Medicare first, report it, talk with Medicare about what can be done about the claims, if anything. They're probably going to say nothing, and request a new card, but then report it to SMP, because what we do is we compile a detailed case report that gets submitted to the Office of Inspector General for further investigation. Now, there isn't a specific time frame within which they launch or conclude an investigation, and they don't notify us or the beneficiary. But that is the entity that would investigate it. If it was determined, let's say, that a provider fraudulently submitted claims for a surgery or a treatment or whatever it is, then that investigation could lead to their loss of license, their inability to be contracted with Medicare or other government programs, potentially jail time. It just depends on what the case involves. I'm going to take a quick look at our chat here, make sure there isn't something else. So Gail asked if there's another way to contact Medicare. Here's my thought on contacting Medicare. There's two things I'm really, really big on. One is empowering beneficiaries to take action. And the reason is that when we've experienced a scam call or fraud in our lives, it leaves us feeling victimized, right? And vulnerable. And to me, it's really important that that individual take charge of as many things as they possibly can. Now, also realizing some clients need a lot more help. than others. But I would say it is in the beneficiary's best interest to be the one that calls Medicare. And yes, they would have to call the 1-800-633-4227 number and talk to a customer service person. It's probably going to take them a little while. But the other part of it is that only the beneficiary can request a new ID number. That has to come from them. So if you had a client, you could be there with them. You could be on the phone with them. If that person needed extra support, you can walk them through. You could try using your unique ID and call through the back channel using your SHIBA unique ID. And that might work, but the representative is most likely still going to have to talk to the beneficiary. I don't know if that answers your question, Gail. But and yes, those phone calls take a long time. I advise our clients, just be prepared. If you've got somewhere to be in 15 minutes, that's not the time to make the call. So plan on maybe an hour. Thank you, Naburo, for the link in there. He did put in the link in there for the OIG website. You can report directly to OIG's hotline. They require some really specific information, which is kind of what my job is, to gather all the information they require for their investigation. And I can compile it all into a report. So you can go either, I mean, you can go direct through OIG and try and submit through them, or you can contact us and SMP will walk through it with you. Advantage plans are seen. So Valerie asked, is this likely to occur with an Advantage plan as well as original Medicare? Advantage plans do also encounter fraud. I can't give you percentages as to where the percentages lie, but if I were to hazard a guess, I would say original Medicare is much higher. And the reason is, remember that Advantage plans are private companies and the bottom line drives their business, right? Drives how they do things. And so loss of money to fraud is a really, really big deal if you are a private company trying to make sure you're still in business tomorrow. Medicare loses more than $60 billion a year just to fraud. And that's just Medicare. It's over $100 billion if you consider Medicare and Medicaid with fraud. The Advantage plans have implemented, not all of them, but most of them, algorithms that can catch claims that seem suspicious or potential fraud in that processing system, so before it is fully processed. In Washington State, I'm also part of a Medicare Advantage fraud work group that is convened by our local or Washington-based OIG investigator. So we do a lot of information sharing and case sharing at that work group, and it's really good. So Advantage plans are really trying to be very proactive about it. And their own survival really is dependent on some of that, right? So, will the new wiser law in Washington add to our difficulties? I don't know if I can answer that, right? Because we're looking at use of AI, we're looking at other technological uses and advances that I'm not sure have been tested with respect to fraud. So I don't know. I would say, like a lot of these new things that are popping up this year, let's stay tuned. Let's be sure that we're being diligent and listening for those kinds of things. Stay in touch with our, other agency partners like the Healthcare Authority and DSHS and other entities that might be enrolled in programs like Wiser. Okay. Does the Inspector General's position in CMS exist? Yeah, the Inspector General is actually not in CMS. It is part of the Health and Human Services Department, which oversees kind of all of that. And yes, OIG is still very much in place. So if somebody gives their Medicare ID to the wrong person, Connie's asking, is a fraud alert the best thing, or should they ask for a new account? Fraud alert and a new ID, both. If they give out their ID, what Medicare representatives will say though is if you have a scam call and you give out your information, until they see fraudulent claims, they're not going to give you a new ID. right? So you kind of have to wait till the crime's committed. Then you can ask for a new ID. So just good to know that that's why then we also tell people, watch your Medicare statements. Charlie, did you have something you were going to add? I saw you unmute and I wasn't sure if you wanted to say something.
No, I just forgot to mute.
Oh, that's okay. You're being nice and quiet. It's all good. Okay, so what I want to transition to is how all of this information, which I realize it's a lot, but how does this impact you as SHIBA counselors? You might be thinking to yourself, great, good to know. Kim, you're doing great work, stick at it. I'm over here, I'm counseling on Medicare. Just tell me what I need to know about open enrollment. I'll let you know if I have any fraud. See you later, right? And I would say not so fast. You don't get off that easy. So everybody who does SHIBA activities has opportunities to share information with their consumers that they're dealing with, right? Now, you might share when you're at an event information about open enrollment. What is it? What should people watch for? Right? That's become common practice in what you do as SHIBA counselors. But what needs to be more common practice is, now that you are in Medicare, there are some things you might find that you are encountering. You might start getting more of these scam calls where people are asking for your information. And here's what I want you to know about those. You might start seeing some things, or at some point in your career as a Medicare beneficiary, you might notice something on your Medicare account that doesn't look right. So let's talk about what you should be looking for and then what to do if something seems suspicious. 2 quick tips, and that can be added into any counseling session or any interaction. If you're doing a happy birthday, welcome to Medicare event, those 2 phrases are easily added to that presentation. And that is that's how we're integrating fraud prevention and detection into our SHIBA activities. So let me show you something that I think might help. Just a second here, get to sharing the screen. Okay. Can you see? You should be able to see a screen that says SHIBA SMP counseling script. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So this was sent out to volunteer coordinators on August 28th. So if you didn't receive it, or if you're a volunteer coordinator, please make sure you distribute that among your teams. And essentially, this is less than 10 minutes worth of talking points or tips for any of the folks you're interacting with. So here's a great way that you might introduce this. You've just talked about open enrollment. You've just talked to somebody about making a change to a Medicare Advantage plan, or from Medicare Advantage back to original Medicare, whatever it is, right? And before they leave, you're just going to say something like, hey, before you go today, I just want a couple more seconds to let you know some things that I think are going to be really important to you. So one of the things that we're seeing with our Medicare clients is they're getting a lot of these scam calls. And in these scam calls, people are saying they're from Medicare, they're asking for your Medicare information. And we're just hearing that a lot of times people aren't quite sure, so they give out their Medicare ID number. So let's talk about some things that maybe you can do so that if you do encounter any of this, you'll be ready for it, right? So remember that your Medicare ID number, your Medicare card, is just like a credit card for your healthcare. Okay, and just like a credit card, you wouldn't just give the number out to somebody that calls you randomly. Okay, but remember not to give it out to somebody that called you, or somebody if you're at a health fair and they kind of follow you and say, hey, can I update your Medicare information? Don't give it out to anybody except for your known providers and their staff when you're getting treatment or you need care. So there's that. If you're not sure if Medicare is calling you, or you're concerned because the caller says that your benefits are going to be canceled, if you don't verify your information, give Medicare a call and ask them, is there a problem with my benefits? and verify with the entity you know is true. The other thing that you want to watch for, again, we just talked about unsolicited calls. Medicare is not going to call you unless you schedule a call from them. Same thing with Social Security, right? People are getting them same kind of scam calls from saying it's Social Security. Be careful about confirming any personal information over the phone if somebody's called you. Why are they calling you? Right? Just like Laura said, why are you calling me? Why do you need to know this? The other thing that we're hearing is random calls again, and it usually sounds like somebody calling from a call center, so there's lots of noise in the background, and they just want to know if you're being treated for the pain that you experience. Now, how many people over the age of 50 can verify most of the time they have some pain somewhere? So, you know, they're kind of hedging their bets that the person they're calling probably has some pain, and they're going to offer them, you know, this really great thing that's going to take their pain away. You can have a brace for every part of your body, and it's free. It'll come to you in the mail tomorrow, right? No, doesn't work like that. And durable medical equipment has to be prescribed by a doctor after you've had an assessment for a legitimate reason, and it has to be provided by a Medicare contracted supplier. So if they're calling you randomly out of the blue, they're not any of those things. So hang up, just say no. And then reviewing your statements. Now, in this audience, looking at all of your squares here, how many of you review healthcare, health insurance, Medicare statements on a regular basis? Nice, that's pretty good. Of course, I can't see those of you that don't have your screens on, but I'm going to guess that you actually do, and they were all hands up. Thanks, Abby. So we tell people and recommend to people, if you get a Medicare summary notice, if you get it in the mail, you're only going to get it every 3 months when services are covered, right? When there's actual claims. So then we say, guess what? If you sign up for a Medicare.gov account, you can review those statements anytime. Usually they're processed within 24 to 48 hours, maybe longer if it's a long weekend or something, and you can review those claims very quickly. If you have a Medicare Advantage plan or a prescription drug plan, you can see printed copy or review online your explanation of benefits monthly. And so we encourage people, as soon as you are able, please, lower my hand now, please review those statements, because that's how you detect suspicious activity. And then we also need those documents to report the fraud to myself or OIG's office or whoever. And then I just would share the contact information, right? SHIBA's number. People can call the SHIBA number for help with fraud. If they have concerns about reading their Medicare summary notice or setting up a Medicare account. We have an online fraud reporting form. They can go onto our OIC website and use the link to report it online if they don't want to talk to somebody on the phone or navigate phone systems. And of course, call 1-800-633-4227 for Medicare and report it there. So this is, you know, it's quick couple tips for people to be reminded to check their statements, to watch out for scams, don't accept braces in the mail, you know, those kinds of things. The kinds of things that are commonly happening out there and how to be aware of it. Before I talk anymore, because I'm going to lose my voice and you're going to be really tired of hearing my voice, I do want to ask, so I have 2 of my Senior Medicare Patrol volunteers with me today. So Kathy Price and Charlie Sheldon have gone through the SHIBA counseling training and then also through the SMP training. And we are in the process of changing our SMP training so it is not all self-driven online webinar. It is a combination of the online resources, but then it is in-person or virtual training with me. And we did about 6 sessions of breaking down what's involved in being an SMP counselor. But what I want Kathy and Charlie to talk about is how they integrate what they've learned being SMP volunteers into their SHIBA counseling. And Charlie, do you want to go first and then I'll have Kathy speak?
Okay. I mean, the main thing I do is I try to always get in something to people about scam calls and frauds and not giving the number out. I mean, it's become kind of part of my little routine, and I think they like to hear it. That's it. And I haven't gotten many calls from SHIBA that have turned out to be fraud a couple times. But when Kim sends me contacts, I'll talk to them, and mostly it's scam calls, actually. But I just try to notify me, don't ever give your number out, don't answer the phone calls, And actually this time of year, everybody's buried in calls anyway, so, and I also say, if they say they're from Medicare, watch out, because they're not supposed to call you.
Yeah. So many of the cases that Charlie and Kathy handle are cases I refer to them after they've been reported to me through the SHIBA line. And they deal with a lot of the scam calls because that's a lot of what we get. And so they reach out. But I think what's important here and what Charlie emphasized, and I'm going to pass it to Kathy, is that there's information. You don't have to know how to help the person resolve their fraud. I'm not asking you to build a case report and submit that to OIG or to me. I'm not asking you to be fraud caseworkers. What I'm asking is to include some tips on how to protect themselves, how to detect it when it happens, and then where to report it. So basically, it's educating the consumer. So, Kathy, do you want to share how you've kind of integrated some of that?
Well, I incorporate, and we talk about the fraud calls all the time, and don't hang up or don't answer the phone if it's a phone number you don't recognize. If it's really important, they're going to leave a message, and then you can call them back if the message doesn't look fraudulent, because that could happen too, I suppose. And I also tell them about the booklet that Medicare has that you can record your visit to the doctor and what was ordered and if there were any testing that you have done, so that when the billing comes out and you look at the billing, you can see, did I really have that done? I have an example myself that I just got. I got a bill, and for two lab tests, and one of them was a blood test, which I gave the blood for. The other one was a test, and the specimen needed was a urine sample. Well, I didn't give them a urine sample, so there's a test charged on my bill that never happened, and there is no result either, thank heavens, on my account where I can see the lab results. So there's a good example of an error. There's that probably a billing error is what I'm thinking, but it was $99 too, So anyway, we talk about the MSNs too a little bit. It's kind of hard unless you have a real example that you can show for people to look at their billing. But Medicare never calls you. That's another line you always have to use or should use.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've talked, some of the people I've talked to, I haven't talked to very many SMP clients yet, but one of the ladies, I mean, she was really embarrassed. She'd given out her Medicare number and everything, and then the person that was calling called her honey, and that was the red flag, and she hung up. She says, a business call like that, nobody's going to call you honey. So So she felt good about that, at least she ended the call and didn't get any other information out.
Yep. Marina, do you have a question?
Yes. Sometimes when the scammers call, they say, I have the last 4 digits of your Medicare number. So just give me the rest and, I can provide you with this. So how do they have the last 4 digits, or are they telling a lie?
Well, there are some people that have fraudulent claims on their Medicare statement. So things that have been charged to Medicare using their full ID number, and nobody ever contacted the beneficiary. So whoever these criminals are got a hold of that person's ID number without that person ever giving it out. How does it happen? Well, I mean, it's just like any of the fraud we deal with in today's society. Our information is sold. So it could be that somebody at a pharmacy, somebody at a provider's office, somebody at a hospital, who knows, can get a hold of our information and sell it.
There's
So
an
I would
entire
just like
web
to bring.
where people can buy that information.
Yes. They buy on the black market. Yep. I heard a statistic at one point in a webinar that I was listening to, that they caught some individuals that were would receive stolen ID information from like pharmacy staff, other different provider locations. And then this person over the course of a weekend would sell 50, 60,000 people's IDs to criminals that would use it fraudulently.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
my
it's
message is,
busy.
my message is, even if the caller says, I have your last 4 digits, do not trust them. Don't give any information.
No, why do they need the
She was
rest? I mean,
persistent. She kept on calling,
yeah.
sort of with
Well,
that.
and here's to your point, and then I know Tina's got a question and Peggy wanted to say something. One of the things I often receive reports about is the scam calls don't stop. They call me in the morning, they call me late at night, they call me on the weekends. I'm getting 20 calls a day, 30 calls a day. There's no magic button. There's not an agency, there's not a website, there's not a tool I can give anybody that will make them automatically stop. So what we recommend is don't answer. Kathy hit on this. I think Charlie might have hit on that. The best thing you can do is, if you don't know that number, and I know I just said they spoof numbers, so you're going to make mistakes. But if a random number is coming in that you don't know, don't answer it. Or tell your family, friends, providers, and everybody that for the next many weeks, you're going to be screening all calls because you're being targeted by scammers. And let every call go to voicemail. 9 times out of 10, a scammer is not going to leave a voicemail. They can't manipulate a voicemail machine or system, right? So they're only interested in talking to you live most of the time. If they leave a voicemail, you have the opportunity to investigate the entity that they say they are from. So the best way to get the scam calls to stop is for them to not reach anybody when they call. And that's about the only thing that we have been able to come across that will eventually get them to move on. So Tina, and then I'll go to Peggy.
Oh, I was just going to observe that I had a Medicare summary notice on my desk and I looked at it and they used the last 4 digits on the Medicare. So stolen mail, I would guess, would be one way that those are found.
Yeah, I mean, the last 4 digits of the Medicare ID is not going to be the most essential part, and that's the easiest part to come up with. So they're using it to build trust, right? They're using it to make themselves seem like they are calling from Medicare, and they already have your information, so you should give them more. Peggy, you had something you wanted to share.
I was just going to say, it's not always phone calls. There's also scams that are coming in on text and email. Not as many, but there are. And the spoofing of the phone number is becoming a really big thing. I've had a number of clients who have had calls that are purportedly from their hospital or their doctor verifying their information. And I always tell them, don't give the information out. Tell them you don't have that right available, but you'll call back in a few minutes.
Yes,
And for them
exactly.
to call back the number they have.
Yep, and then exactly, and then call the number that you've looked up to verify as the true number, not a number somebody left. Yeah, I can't see. Patty, did you have your hands up, or somebody in your group does?
Sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you're talking about phone calls. We had something going on here. One of our SHIBA volunteers, who's not here today, unfortunately, but she received a letter in the mail from Primera, and Pat, you had somebody else that got something.
Yes, we both have, well, there's our SHIBA person and then another client of mine, both received checks in the mail from Primera. One of the checks from my client is $1,810,000.
Nice.
The other check is like 20,000. Patty,
I'm trying to show you a copy. I
yeah,
can't see where my
Yeah,
camera.
I don't know. I was gonna say with your split screen, it probably won't work.
Right. Okay. But yeah. So these are, well, supposedly checks.
they're on Wells Fargo Bank. They do not have
Yeah.
a check number, however, and one of them is 823 and one is 825.
Yeah, and this one is 3,000, and the
The
other one
date
was
on
more.
last time,
Yeah.
So
So
Primera had a problem. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Primera had a problem with their billing system that they sent out payments that were supposed to go to providers to clients.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
For
we
that client,
we received a notice about it yesterday. There's hundreds of these.
We should do a news flash.
I think it's in the works, and I'm sorry to interrupt
Okay.
Kim, but I didn't
No,
know
that's
if you
good.
heard about that.
No, I hadn't
Yeah.
heard about it.
So yeah, because we had
Goodness.
other clients that had gotten checks for like $15,000, $25,000. The million is the new high. But yes, it paid beneficiaries instead of providers.
Oh my gosh.
So
The retirement plan you never knew you had.
right, it's like, okay, so you'll never see that client again. But no, I'm just kidding. That's
Wow.
what happened with that. So if anyone hears more of that, that's exactly what happened. We don't have direction. Should they call Primera? Should they, do you know what I mean? We don't have any direction on that. What they should not do clearly is cash the check, right? So,
Yeah.
but, and expect that they're going to be able to keep the money in their account if they do. But it is a very real thing that happened. So last week. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I put in the chat a link. I put several things in there, but I did put in the link for the Federal Trade Commission. They have some good information on their website about scam calls, texts, emails, those kinds of things. So I often will refer people to that website to kind of educate themselves on how to handle scam calls, how to block them, that kind of thing. They can report to the Federal Trade Commission, but like SMP, Federal Trade Commission is not an investigative entity. They will compile information and then refer it on to the actual investigators or authoritative agency that would investigate that. So, but they're a really good source of information. I also included, let's see, Judy, you were asking about how to set up a Medicare.gov account. I put a link in there that is an AARP link. They have a great page that gives a step-by-step for people to set up their Medicare.gov account. And so I often will include that in emails for clients or send that to them so they can set up an account for themselves. And then Kathy was talking about the healthcare tracker, which is a tool created by SMP nationally. And the purpose of this is that you can write down, and it would take me a bit to find it in our system, so I'm not going to bother to show it to you today, but there's a link there that shows a video on how to use it. Basically, it's a journal, and you keep track of all of your healthcare visits, the date, the provider you saw, what was, what happened at it, medications prescribed, whatever it is, lab tests, all of the things. Then when you get your insurance statements or even billing statements, you can compare the two. And you can say, yes, this happened on this date, or no, it didn't. Oh, when I saw the doctor, I was just there to treat an infection, not a cancer biopsy, something like that. So it just is another tool for tracking the services people are receiving and then the claims that are submitted subsequent of that. So feel free to click on any of those links and open them, save them on your desktop, or however that would work. Or if you send me an email and ask me about it, I can send it to you again as well. So we're kind of coming down to the end. I did want to, allow any of you to ask any more questions. And my main goal, when Noreen and I were talking about Lunch and Learn today, was to provide some tips on how you might integrate fraud prevention into your regular interactions with consumers or beneficiaries. And so what I want to know is, do you feel like that was provided today, or do you feel like I have a little more work to provide some tools or tips or things that you can quickly turn around and use? Tina says yes. Larry says yes. Thank you. Lisa says yes. Okay, so it sounds like overall people have something that they can take and use easily. Wonderful. Anything else that I can answer or you're curious about, or situations that maybe you want to send to me in an email and ask a question, however that works. I'm always very available. So
this is Charlie. I wanted to add one thing.
Yeah.
It was mentioned earlier, but
Mhm.
what I've noticed is that the ability of emails purportedly from either Medicare or insurance company are getting highly more sophisticated, and it's almost like if you got to really be careful in terms of some of these emails, because they look very, very official.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add, Connie shared in the chat that you can set your iPhone so it does not ring for any calls from anyone not in your contacts list. And then it's worked wonders for her husband. I think Androids have that same thing too, because I actually think I turned it on a while before I got my iPhone. I think I turned it on by accident because my phone wasn't.
It's a thing of beauty, because my husband is a very polite person who feels that he needs to answer every phone call, and he was going nuts and driving me crazy. So I set this up. He's so happy. Now, this means that if somebody that is not in your contacts list really needs to call you, but it doesn't go away, it just goes into your recent calls and you can check it.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can set it to go, and I just haven't tried it, but I wonder if you can set it to go to voicemail automatically. But there's another scenario that would work out well with too, and I have received reports a couple of times from a caregiving spouse whose spouse is dealing with some cognitive change due to dementia or Alzheimer's or something, and they aren't in a place where they're taking their phone away, but they also don't feel they can trust their spouse to respond appropriately to a phone call that comes in asking them personal information. So these kinds of tips are really wonderful in that scenario, because you can say, sure, don't take their phone away, but you have settings and features you can utilize to help them not get so many of these scam calls.
Yeah. And Kim, can we share the script that you shared, or the one with the different points? We'll send it out. Can you send it to me, and we'll send it to everyone after, everyone who's attended?
And actually, it was sent to all the RTCs and all the VCs on the 28th, but I will send it again. I also have like an info sheet that if you want to give a client something to take with them, that gives pretty much all the same points. And so it's more public facing as opposed to, say, a counselor script. So I'll
send an email after with a link to the info sheet and Kim's attachment, and also have a link to the video for this session and the transcript. That would be a Zoom link that you'll get for that.
And we're also going to include the script in October CE workbook.
Okay. Yeah. Patty, did you still have a question?
I think her hand is just up from earlier.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for your time, and thanks for listening and your great stories and questions. And I look forward to talking again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. And we'll see those of you who want to learn some tips and tricks for using the DSNP side-by-side chart in conjunction with Medicare Plan Finder. As we get open, as we get ready for open enrollment, that's going to be our October Lunch and Learn.
Yeah. And I do want to say a quick thank you to Kathy and Charlie for coming in and sharing their experience. They're great volunteers. I appreciate you guys.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good month.
Bye.